Daniel Dubois walked to the ring like a man with the weight of the world on his shoulders. He left it looking like the happiest man on the planet. 6 months after losing to Joe Joyce, the heavyweight prospect stopped Bogdan Dinu in just the second round to re-establish himself as a contender. This is After the Bell, Mirror Fighting's boxing show with me, Martin Domin, with Barry Jones and with Declan Taylor. And I have to point out, we moan a lot about the late night events we've covered. So we should say that it is 14 minutes past 10. The main event finished, I think, at 2 minutes past 10. It's incredible. I mean, we're not complaining. We hope this is the start.
Whoa. We will complain. This is boxing. We will find something to complain about. I'm thinking, no, what I'm complaining about. There's nothing to complain about.
You're too right. But let's see how long we can last. Barry, we all know what happened last November with Joe Joyce, with Daniel Dubois. Before we come to the fight itself or the knockout itself, what did you want to see from Daniel Dubois tonight in his first fight back? And did you see it?
Yes, I did see it, and it was confidence in himself. You just don't know how someone's going to react when they've been seriously hurt or they quit or whatever the things were thrown at him. And boxing is such a confident sport. Whether you're a destroyer or a dancer, you have to believe in yourself. And if there's any doubt to you in your ability or your makeup, then you'll take that into the ring view and it will show. And it didn't seem to be that way tonight. He looked full of confidence. He went aggressive. And that's what I wanted to see, and that's exactly what he did against a guy who is not world level, but is decent enough to give you a test if there's any cracks in your makeup. And I don't think Daniel showed that at all tonight.
It was a decent test, Declan, wasn't it? Coming off the back of that defeat, Dinu had only lost to Jarrell Miller and Kubrat Pulev. And listen, there was obviously no reason Dubois would lose his power in those 6 months, but as Barry said, the lack of confidence could translate into being gun shy or whatever, but there was no problems in the less than 4 minutes that he was in the ring.
There weren't any problems, but I got to say, in 4 minutes, I did think he looked very, very tense indeed. And he had some success in the first round, but like he's never been that fluid as a heavyweight, obviously, just based on the size of him. But I did think there was some tension, and that's to be expected, I think. Now I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to look like in his next fight, and whether that is something that they need to address. I think Shane McGuigan's a great coach for that. That they'll talk to it. It will talk to him, and they'll think about things. And it's not just like come in, do your drills, do your sparring, go home again. They're gonna. I think he's a perfect person to try and nurture him. Because I do think there's still this is going to do him the world of good. But I do think there'll be more of a hangover. I don't think it's like right, job done. Now it's like it never happened. I do think it's something that will linger a bit longer, but. Yeah, I think, to be honest, I really do think that Dinu's decent. He was a perfect opponent for this because he's not a massive puncher and he's also clearly vulnerable. You only have to look at the way he got stopped against Miller and Pulev. I didn't think it would be that quick. I thought it would be early because, to be honest, I thought Dubois was going to be that nervous that he's just desperately trying to take him out. But I think he made a little adjustment in the second round and it paid off straight away. So jobs are good, but more, obviously it goes without saying, tougher tests and more questions need to be answered in the next 12, 18 months.
I did see something in the first round when he was coming forward, Dubois, he just got clipped with a little left hand. It was nothing major, but you did see him back up really quick. And I don't think there's massive panic in this work. I just think that that was the first time he's sort of been hit since the Joyce fight, obviously in a competitive action, and he did back up, which is not always a bad thing, but then because you're looking for things and you're thinking, am I over-analysing that? No, is that a little bit of he's worried about getting caught, about the damage or whether he can absorb a shot? But it wasn't to be a factor in the fight, luckily for him.
He's only 22 as well. He's only 22, or 22, 23, barely had any fights, really. He's a total baby, so you should be expecting things like that, but I thought it was... I don't know. I think it's still we need to be cautious with him.
I mean, I can hear fireworks going off in someone's back garden, so someone's happy with the result.
Yeah, that's. I think that must be Dubois' after party.
Be quite the day for the Dubois family. Earlier, Caroline qualified for the Olympics. Another successful day for Team GB. But back to Daniel. Dick mentioned Shane McGuigan. Of course, he had a very brief spell with Mark Tibbs, having parted company with Martin Bowers. That's been a very short space of time that the Daniels had to work with Shane Barry. And, you talked about the next year. Is that a good partnership, do you think, from what you know?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's just a different voice telling you the same things. Can be different sometimes. Things get stale, or when things don't work out, then there's a frustration with both the trainer and the fighter, and you just need a bit of a freshen up. It's not always an issue. I don't know whether there has been with the Bowers and him, but I think Shane McGuigan, a bit like the Bowers, and a bit like Mark Tibbs, sort of just work on the simple things. I don't think they'll try and overcomplicate the sport. I think we're in a generation now where trainers seem more intelligent than before, but they're always trying to be too clever at times. I feel trying to look for trying to make boxing more complicated than it is, and that's really just to make yourself look cleverer. We do it as pundits, and I think I've said that already before. But I think McGuigan's one of those trainers who just keep things simple, because it is quite simple, especially for heavyweights. If you do the basics really well, you're a world-class heavyweight. That's the difference, because of the power, and keeping your shape is more important in that weight, because you can't get away with mistakes. Because a mistake will most of the time get you knocked out. So for someone like Daniel, who doesn't have, as sort of Declan's already alluded to, doesn't really have a massive mobility. He's quite, where he's going to be. He's quite rigid. So he needs to do the basics very well. I think Shane McGuigan, like he was with the Coley, I think they're perfect for throwing the straight jab. You don't throw anything until that jab hits the target, then you follow through with the right hand. I think Shane gets you turning from the core, gets you bringing that back hip forwards when you throw the right hand, and transferring the weight. It makes you nice and clean and everything's crisp. And we've seen a lovely right hand there to finish the fight. So I think it will be a good partnership. Until it's not, and then you'll move on to a next trainer. And that's just the way the sport is, I'm afraid. But ultimately, trainers are worth the weight in gold. But the most important thing, the fighter makes the trainer. If you haven't got talent, then it doesn't matter how good your trainer is, he's not going to make you a great fighter. But you have to be happy with who you're with. And if a talented fighter is happy, then he's successful. And so is the partnership with the trainer.
I do think there's a couple of things to be mentioned there. Is that he boxed as a junior anyway, basically just about every one of the top clubs in London. He moved around a lot, and it's going to be interesting to see if that happens as a pro. Whether as soon as he loses, he moves. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. Also, really interested to see how this relationship develops, considering the fact that he's promoted by Frank Warren, and he's trained by Shane McGuigan, and he's managed by Martin and Tony Bowers still. So there's sort of three things going on there. I'm interested to see how that all works in the shake-up, because he was initially with Mark Tibbs and that didn't work straight away. So yeah, I'm interested to see what happens there over the next 6 months. I hope it's something that there's a good synergy there, but it seems like there's a lot of stuff going on there. So let's see. I mean, the first hurdle was cleared, but this is just a start.
But also, isn't that just a traditional? No, trainers are now your manager, and I think that's it seems like that's a great idea, but I think it's not, because you can't change your trainer because he's your manager. I know Daniel's done it, but it's very hard to do that. If everything under one roof sounds fantastic, except your options are limited, where you can't put. I think that relationship with the trainer and a fighter is a special bond, and if he's your manager as well, I think he has to. They should get the more money. I feel the trainers they should get 25%, and the managers should get 10%. I feel, but because they're with you all the time doing all work, and they more often than not will okay the fight that the manager's made anyway, for the most part, especially early in your career for sure. But still, I think let the manager do his job, the trainer does his job, and then I think that's traditionally that has been the most successful route. And the promoter's not your manager, or the manager's not part of the promotional team, and that I think that helps as well. So I think it's a good thing. I think you got three different people there, all looking. I know there's more money potentially, but you got three people there just doing one job each, and I think it simplifies it. And all Shane McGuigan has to do is worry about getting Daniel right, not worrying about making a fight or arguing over percentages of money, this money for that, and the route to the top. You just got to get his fight ready when they have a date. and I think that makes his job easier, and I think ultimately with that will make their partnership more successful.
I'm going to gloss over the fact that Daniel Dubois is technically now the WBA interim heavyweight world champion. Even just saying it sounds ludicrous. If I was feeling mean, I would ask you both.
That's what the fireworks are for.
Excuse me. Does he get a belt?
Oh yeah.
For that. So it's just great, isn't it? So we got 5 WBA, got 5 champions in heavyweight. Claiming to have a piece of the world title. You got Anthony Joshua, who's actually the real one. Trevor Bryan, who's the world champion, but not the regular world champion, whatever that means. Robert Helenius, who's the gold champion. Manuel Chad, what's Manuel Chad? What's he?
In recess.
Oh no, he's the regular.
No.
He's recess. Is he? No, he's regular. What's Trevor Bryan then? What's he? They got 5, haven't they? Exactly. Listen, when people who live and breathe and work in boxing can't figure it out, what does that do? People complain there's 4 organisations, and that's too many. Of course it is. Even the people like me who wouldn't want to be world champions rather than 4 world organisations, we all still complain about it. But now you've got organisations having their own 4, 5 versions of the world title. It's just bizarre. So we're saying he got another 18 months, and he's saying himself, I want to get a bit more development. We mentioned last week about who was it? Was it Jamel Herring, maybe?
No, Haney.
Hey, Devin Haney, he needs a few more learning fights, and you were spot on. You were correct. Yeah. He's a world champion. Like, it's just bizarre. You get there too quick. It's just your own fault. You're there, but like, you were genuinely serious, and we were all agreeing with you until we think, hang on a minute.
He's the world champion.
He's the world champion, but he's not elite, yeah. No, the world championship. See, I knew he'd fight him in the Moneyball. I'm so happy. I knew it. Martin making out this is going to be a really happy podcast. and him being Scottish as well. Shame on you, Martin.
But in all seriousness, maybe the answer to this is just no. But given that Alexander Usyk is probably going to fight Anthony Joshua, who's put Joe Joyce on the sidelines for a little bit longer, is it beyond the realms of possibility that maybe early next year Daniel Dubois fights one of the aforementioned sort of WBA champions and technically becomes a heavyweight champion before Joe Joyce?
Well, he's not going to fight Joshua, is he? So it don't count.
Okay. What Joshua gives you that? No, you can see. You can see in the end. You're just going, I don't care about all the belts. What if Fury gets beaten and then there's Wilder, and then all of a sudden being that massive unification, which you still want that, but the whole thing about the Fury Joshua thing, everything has to be a little bit muddled and not so a beautiful story like it originally was. So it's just you're not so concerned about having all the belts all of a sudden, and if you say he relinquishes the WBO and doesn't want to fight Usyk for whatever reason, they can't do a deal, then why not get rid of the WBA? If they're asking to fight someone like Trevor Bryan or Manuel Chad, what's the point in that? That's not even a fight for Anthony Joshua. So he moves on. So the biggest tragedy in all this build up with Daniel Dubois is we've all spoken about Daniel Dubois. Joe Joyce won that fight, that massive all British, the British title fight, heavy title fight, the Lennox Lewis, massive fight we were talking about when he won the British title, that and it just the winner goes on to great things. Well, the winner did his job, and he sat on the sideline. No one talks about him. By the way, the Olympic silver medalist, and no one talks about him. It's just absolutely ludicrous.
If you'd said back then that we'd be seeing Dubois out first before Joyce, Dubois' eye hanging off, and Joe Joyce the winner, fresh as a daisy, and we're here now, and he's out first. It's mad, isn't it? It's absolutely mental. Like I just want to see Joyce back in a big one.
But it's weird. It's something about Dubois because he's young, and you just think that he has so much promise that you just think that he is the one to push it forward. I don't know why. Is it because Joyce is just not artistic enough? His personality he's a lovely kid. He doesn't come across great. His style's not pleasing enough. I don't know what it is, but He's just something there. He doesn't excite people. I mean, it's good to watch when he fights, but the whole just package with him doesn't excite people for whatever reason. I don't know why. But you mentioned Daniel Dubois, and everyone gets excited. It's just, you can't put your finger on it either, because again, he's not. He doesn't look like a young Lennox Lewis in the ring. Let's be honest. He looks good, but he's not. He hasn't got that same allure about his ability. He hasn't got that athletic. He's not as athletic. People say he's athletic, and he's not. I don't see that. He's very rigid and square and powerful, but I don't see the athleticism in his work at all, to be honest. But yeah, but we're talking about the guy who lost the fight, and all we're doing is talk, and everyone is just talking about him. And Joe Joyce doesn't matter, because he was only got the Olympic final, for Great Britain, and he only won the fight. And no one really thought he could win. But yeah, but he won't get a title shot now for maybe never. That's the weirdest thing. This boxing's a funny game, isn't it? How that can happen. Just by order of elimination, he should just be on everyone's lips for who he fights the winner of Joshua and Fury, or Joshua and Wilder, or Fury and Wilder. He should be up there with them now, to be honest. But no, we're all in the Daniel Dubois camp.
I think the plan is to put Joe Joyce. Is he going to headline a show on the same night as Fury Wilder, but in the UK? I think that's something that I read, but it's not going to be a dangerous opponent, is it? Given his lofty position with the WBO.
No, I want to see him. I want to see either of them in with Derek Chisora. I don't want to poke the bear with Barry, but I'd like to see Dubois in with Chisora. I'd like to see Joe Joyce in with Chisora. Either of those, and in that, because neither of them going to fight for a world title anytime soon. And yeah, I'd like to see either of them.
I think it's a good fight for him. I think it is. I think Joyce and Chisora is a cracking fight, because the engine that Joyce has, and the stubbornness of Chisora will make a fantastic fight until the later rounds, where I think Chisora gasses out. But I think it makes a really good fight, really entertaining fight while it lasts. I think. Yeah. Dubois is still a test for Dubois, isn't it? Because even though Dubois could box rings around him, if Chisora can just be a bit cute and a little bit cute. What am I talking about? Chisora be cute. But if he can make Dubois work really hard and stay safe for the first 4 or 5 rounds, then it becomes a really interesting fight.
And Chisora will be all over him in the build-up, and trying to rattle him, get under his skin the whole time, and from the off, he'd be on him like on his chest the whole fight. It'd be a great fight, good test for Dubois. And
also Chisora now, with all what's happening with obviously with Matchroom moving to the zone, and don't know what's happening with Sky with boxing, and where does he go? Do the zone even want him? Does it? He's not. I don't think he's a part of the Matchroom promotional team, is he? He's pretty much sort of on his own. So that he might be looking for work. He might be looking for places to go, because he might not have a home in there.
There you go. Fight reviewed, matchmaking done, inside 20 minutes, and it's 10:30. I should just note Nathan Haney stopped Ilyan Markov in the 3rd round in front of what felt like 6,000, but was really only 600 Stoke fans. Tommy Fury was taking the 4-round distance by Jordan Grant. Very much looks like a work in progress. But that is all from us for this week. Next weekend, Lewis Ritson is in a final eliminator in Newcastle. And we'll be back then to go back through it, hopefully at the same time, if not slightly later. Until then, thanks for tuning in. Take care, and we'll see you next week.